Hi, thanks to all of you for coming out, and thanks, Emily, for a stunning set, and to all the readers of the first set as well. I really enjoyed hearing you all, so thank you. I actually wish I could say that I curated my collection, but my editor more or less did that, including, telling me which things the curation should, curate away. So that was very helpful. Okay, I'm just going to read a few poems from The Road In Is Not the Same Road Out, and I'm going to start with a poem called A Western. Its origins are to this hour undetermined. The free-floating found its transformative agent. A third term arose. It was a thing. It existed. Not a friend, though in all other things it did kindle a renewed existence. Storefronts said, "Defend yourself." Under pavements, the timbers, arms around one another, said, "Embrace your condition," said, "We are lost." Equipment is in a peculiar position. It knows it belongs to the earth. The machine, with its 1,000 parts, is a thing, as is its smallest bearing. A pail is a thing, so is the water it carries. A painting hangs like a hat on a nail. Judgment, perception, death are things in themselves. They're not nothing, though they don't, as things, appear. But what is the use of a feeling, however certain, in defining that which itself is only a feeling? No thing can survive such boredom. The situation prevails with its timeline. A third term arose between us. It existed. But a violence has been done to its element it could not withstand. It is not dead, unseen, or elsewhere. Nothing real any longer corresponds to it. Above the harbor, a gull creates flight as flight has created him. He arises and results from his work. He is the circle that violates logic. That's where his soul is. I feel like I say I do often read this poem, but I read it when there is sort of an upsurge in bedbug incidents in Toronto, and there seems so often these days to be an upsurge. So this is called Be Reasonable. My husband says to set the legs of our bed in buckets of water is to overreact. He does not subscribe to the online bedbug registry, does not acknowledge on his tactical map the advance from the Delta, the Odeon, incubation in the warm folds of the greater film industry, in homeless shelter and the public upholsteries. A sideboard proclaiming itself free at the curbside is a Trojan horse. On our street, posts from number 83, then 96, where it's reported the landlady presents with an aggressive strain of denial and poor interpersonal skills. Not my business? They make it my business. Often, I don't recognize what I'd rather not do until I've agreed to do it. Then I know what I want, and what I want makes me weak. I grew up comforted by coyotes in the evening, but the news from the suburbs is be afraid. It seems you can live your whole life with a creature and only know it one way. The pine beetle and rusty grain beetle don't realize the harm they do. They are only having experiences. I didn't want to kill the house spiders, but they died in my engagement with the larger project. The spray bottle of dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride is empty. Once I leave the room, the job will be finished. I'll read the title poem now. And I guess it arose initially from reading how easy, I'm especially in the city, I'm a person who gets lost all the time. Read an interview with a writer called Rebecca Solnit, and she said that the phenomenon of being lost or feeling lost when returning along the same path you've taken to wherever you're going simply arises because we don't look behind us when we go somewhere, and so when we turn around, everything looks different. So this is the road in is not the same road out. The perspective is unfamiliar. We hadn't looked back driving in and lingered too long at the viewpoint. It was a prime of life experience. Many things we know by their effects. Void in the rock that the river may advance. Void in the river that the fish may advance. Helicopter in the canyon like a fly in a jar, a mote in the eye, a wandering cause. It grew dark, a shift change and a shift in protocol. To the surface of the road, a trail rose, then a path to the surface of the trail. The desert sent its loose rock up to sea. An inaudible, catastrophic orchestra is tuning. We feel it in the air, impelled before it, as a pressure on the brain. In the day, separate rays fall so thickly from their source, we cannot perceive the gaps between them. But night is absolute, uniform, and self-derived. The formerly irrelevant brought to bear, the progress of its native creatures unimpeded. We have a plan between us, and then we each have our own. Land of the four corners, the silent partner, $500 down, no questions. The rental car stops at the highway intersection, a filthy, violent storm under the hood. It yields to traffic from both directions. It appears it could go either way. There's quite a few mentions of YouTube, the internet. It makes me feel old just saying those words. Somehow they feel wrong coming out of my mouth. I don't know why. But I do spend a lot of time on there because it's a wonderful rabbit hole for research and just for at 3 in the morning realizing you're watching, I don't know, like Fleetwood Mac videos, and it's like, how the hell did I get here? It happens. But there's a reference at the end of this poem to the band, and their concert, The Last Waltz, which is up on YouTube. So yeah, it's a funny situation when you can. When the new medium and nostalgia collide. So this is called Life is a Carnival, which is the title of a song by the band. Dinner finished, wine in hand, in a vaguely competitive spirit of disclosure, we trail Google Earth's invisible pervert through the streets of our hometowns, but find them shabbier or grossly contemporized, denuded of childhood's native flora, stuccoed or in some other way hostile to the historical reenactments we expect of our former settings. What sadness in the disused curling rinks, their illegal basement bars imploding, in the seed of a Walmart sprouting in the demographic, in Street View's perpetual noon. With pale and bloated production values, hits of AM radio rise to the surface of a network of social relations long obsolete. We sense a loss of rapport. But how sweet the persistence of angle parking. Would we burn these places rather than see them change, or just happily burn them? The sites of wreckage from which we staggered with our formative injuries into the rest of our lives. They cannot be consigned to the fourfold, though the age we were belongs to someone else, like our old house. Look what they've done to it. Who thought this would be fun? A concert, then. YouTube from those inconceivable days before YouTube. An era boarded over like a bankrupt country store, cans still on its shelves, so hastily did we leave it. How beautiful they are in their poncy clothes, their youthful higher registers, full screen, 2 of them dead now. Is this eternity? Encore, applause, encore. It's almost like being there. I think I will just read a couple more. And this is called Man is a Rational Animal. It was the same life, more or less. Yet suddenly, a flight itinerary represented the most tangible indication of my fate. From the air, I saw mountains, forest, lakes in which dissolved the notion of ownership, and the sweet little beach craft wagged its tail on landing in a crosswind. My fellow passengers claimed their long guns, carried them in cases like guitars out of the terminal. Darkness accompanied the second segment. The Dash 8 traversing the southwest in high cloud and swinging out over the Atlantic. Lights might have been ships or islands, towns someone from there could identify. But I wasn't from there. Where land ended and the water began was indiscernible, though I was not afraid, because I didn't know what I was seeing. And finally, I'm going to read an elegy for a friend of mine. Who died a number of years ago now. I knew him when we both lived in Lethbridge, Alberta. And when I heard that he'd passed away, I was on the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And the only thing, it had occurred to me then, the only thing that those two places have in common is wind. This is called Spiral. You said, a storm makes a mansion of a poor man's house. I wonder if you did so to make the best of living where it always blew. The maddening wind that messed up our ions and made men want to fight. Now you have no house. There's no need. The cure took the good with the bad. Who cannot escape his prison, but must each day rebuild it? For a year, rather than drink, we smoked and went to bingo. It was like working in a mine. The air quality and incessant coughing, bag lunches, good luck charms, the intergenerational drama. It's not my place to say what changed. You hadn't developed around a midpoint and fell to the side. A part remained exposed. Still, you were kind, unusually so, it seems to me now, for someone with talent. But loneliness expands to fill the void it creates. To plot against it was to plot against yourself. You felt the effect of the whole. When the mind is so altered, this resembles death, but it is not death. Then the faint trail ran out, and you continued on. The night you've entered now has no lost wife in it, no daughter, no friends, betrayal, or fear. It is impartial, without status. I would like to think it peace, but suspect it isn't anything. When our friend wrote you died, I was on sky, where the wind in its many directions is directionless and impossible to put your back to. He said you'd been living rough for a while. He wouldn't go to the wake at the bar. It was too much sadness. That day, I'd walk the beach, picking up shells. Their spirals of Archimedes and logarithmic spirals, principle of proportional similarity that protects the creature and makes it beautiful. Sandpipers materialized through tears the wind made, chasing fringes of the rising tide. At first, there were 2. Then 3 appeared. But when I began to pay attention, I realized they were everywhere. Thank you so much, and thanks to Black Squirrel Books, a store I don't know, but hope to get to know better because it looks amazing. So thanks very much.